No. Okay, but seriously, was I genuinely wrong about Deltarune Chapter 3 in my prior video discussing the chapter and what I didn't like about it? Well, that's what I'm here to discuss. The video has amassed a whopping, oh my god, 521 comments, that's terrifying. So today, I wanted to take a look at these comments and respond to some of them. And no, usernames will not be censored because these are public comments on a public video on the same channel you're watching this on. But please do not harass anyone I bring up in this video, or anyone in the comments in general. That's petty and stupid given this is a discussion about a damn video game. I will actually be responding to comments on this video though, so if you have more ways to say I'm wrong, feel free. Obviously, I may have got some details wrong on my last video because the video is very long, I am just one person, and Deltarune's a big game full of tons and tons of tiny secrets and alternate dialogues. I was bound to have missed something. To get them out of the way, I got a few responses that were just, "You're wrong," and, "Well, I like Chapter 3. That's great you liked it or didn't agree with me, but can you at least say why? Like, come on, there's no room for discussion there. Some people did say why at least, so thanks for that, as long as you were polite about it, Lamau. I didn't notice any of these, I just enjoyed the game. Like, wow man, that's great, I'm glad you didn't notice anything while playing the game. On the opposite end, however, there were also people saying they felt vindicated by the video, and that makes me really happy to read. We should be more open to actively critiquing things we still enjoy, because that way discussion surrounding it can be way more fun, and I'm very happy the video resonated with others. Funnily enough, I didn't get any pushback on the singular Spamton and Tenor interaction in the chapter, which reconfirms to me that yes, the scene is truly that bad. Thankfully everyone is in agreement on this, so now hopefully Tricky Tony will never do this joke again. Anyway, I'm gonna move on to what is possibly the most common complaint about the video, and that is that my take about Tenor's boss battle theme is either wrong or disingenuous. A lot of people complained about how I made an unfair comparison putting the parts of King and Queen songs that I did up against what is essentially the bridge of Tenor's song. The thing is, I was actually worried about this in editing, as the part I was gonna put as a highlight, which is most likely the part everyone is referring to, was swapped out in favour of the segment I went with, as I legitimately thought that sounded better. I stand by that, and I still think the song isn't as good as the other themes. However, one slight amendment I would like to make is that the song not being as good as it can be made up for, perhaps purposely, by the Knight's theme, since Tenor isn't the actual final boss of the chapter. So while I do think I should have mentioned that, I don't change my opinion on the song itself, I still don't like it all too much. Doesn't most of the chapter being game boards answer why the enemy variety is lacking? Because you spend most of it in the game boards? No, it doesn't. There are literally enemy fights during the boards, and TV World accounts for a huge part of the chapter as well. The enemy variety is still inexcusable and still leads to a lot of issues. Mate, this whole chapter is a novelty act. It's just meant to be a detour and subversion of what fans expected. That's why most of it isn't combat and mostly boards. This chapter being a quote-unquote novelty act doesn't absolve it of its criticisms against its weaknesses. Another novelty act chapter from an RPG would be the Glitz Pit from Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door. I'm not too huge on this chapter either, with its extremely heavy focus on fighting and scenery that gets samey. It does at least have something new to slowly uncover in the background though. An actual mystery that keeps the narrative driven forward throughout, and something of interest that isn't forgotten about instantly or answered instantly. Stuff happens here and it takes full advantage of its setting, unlike Deltarune's Chapter 3, which doesn't push its setting to its limit and has horrible narrative pacing, so there's nothing that really drives you forward. Tenor's last minute boards seem rushed? That's weird. It doesn't feel like you're going anywhere. It's like you're being stalled. Like someone is trying to stall you. The whole point of the chapter is, oh my god, this is still going.
Is your superpower just never shutting up?
Right, I'm gonna try and get through all of this very quickly. Tenor's boards not feeling like you're going anywhere can't just be explained by you being stalled, because the theming of the board never progresses, therefore becoming stale and unfun for the player's experience. I said a dreamer house looks clean, so I show footage that imply the contrary, but in my defense, just the TV is the only thing here that seems to be dirty and could be explained as being part of Tenor's character of being a washed-up game show host. TV World not feeling like a living location despite being a set isn't invalid because it doesn't feel like a backstage set, there's no actual rooms of things that make sense for locations, still leaving it with no sense of place. It doesn't feel like an actual proper location, it feels entirely like a bunch of rooms of a video game, and ironically the boards feel more like actual locations than TV World does. I might have got the thing about them not using ice attacks wrong, but you still do resemble snowflakes in my opinion, even then that doesn't dismiss anything else I said relating to that. The Shadow Mantle isn't tied to the weird route, it quite literally is, it name drops it among other blatantly obvious connections. I didn't fucking say this! How else will we find out this information outside of lore dumping all at once? Easy, sprinkle the info throughout the chapter or in hidden areas, or just subtle comments left by people throughout the chapter so the player can piece it together themselves instead of having it spelled out for them all at once. I didn't talk about Ram as a character, yes that's true, I initially planned to, but completely forgot about and only had small bits discussing him when I should have put more time into talking about him. However, the amount of attention I give him is relative to the amount of attention he gets in the chapter as a whole. Phew. Well, I sure hope the next comment I read is normal after the... Breaking news, story game player has to play a story game in a chapter not focused on combat. This is the type of argument used by people who think Paper Mario Color Splash has no redeeming qualities. Okay, first of all, in the term story game, the word game here, it's referring to gameplay, and I think this reply here puts it well. Both Undertale and other Deltarune chapters managed to successfully weave storytelling and gameplay in an engaging way, which in my opinion Chapter 3 didn't accomplish. Which, side note, I shouldn't have to clarify anything is my opinion, that goes without saying, but whatever. I have no clue what Paper Mario Color Splash has to do with this, but it's a much worse game than Deltarune. This comment actually broke out into a bit of a war in the replies, which I won't go over all of except for this line right here. Like, actually, half of your arguments are that the jingling keys that are battles aren't at every single corner of the chapter, including when it makes no sense. That battles, in an RPG,
are jingling keys.
Super Mario Bros? Nope, you only like the jingling keys that's the levels. Dance Dance Revolution? Nah man, you only like the jingling keys that's the music. Sonic the Hedgehog? No bro, you only like the jingling keys that's going fast. Every single fighting game, the fights in those are jingling keys, appreciate something else about them, you fucking chud! Saying that you like Chapter 3 the least is fine, but calling it objectively bad is kind of dumb. I didn't say that! Short video. Thank you, Does Bad Things guy.
Does bad things, guy.
If I have to be honest, the entire video feels like I'm Hollow Knight fan and I only like realistic soundtracks and I don't like Deltarune fandom and Toby's pause. I'm Hollow Knight fan and I only like realistic soundtracks. What does a realistic soundtrack sound like? Can you do an impression of a realistic soundtrack? So, let's hear it. Let's hear you do a realistic soundtrack. Overall, you do have some valid points, but some feels like you want this game to be like Hollow Knight.
What? What are you talking about?
I mean, sure, I wouldn't mind if Deltarune was a much better game, I guess, but don't go telling the masses that. These games are entirely different genres with entirely different styles of writing and world building. It's difficult to really compare them other than saying, I like this one more. Worst conceivable Deltarune take. In my PYP? What? It's more likely than you think. Worst conceivable take, huh? Well, I can do you one better. Just go on r/Delt. Chapter 3 is weird in my head. I think it has some of my favourite and least favourite elements of the game. Yeah, I agree with this. It has some very good highlights that ultimately drudge this experience up from being outright bad, but I think that leaves them as a crutch holding the experience up, like a certain other game that I'll get flamed for saying wasn't very good. However, the overall quality isn't consistent enough to feel like anything truly special. I like Chapter 3 better than Chapter 4. The Chapter 4 weird route really pisses me off. You get to do like 2 things at the start and then the route is completely ignored for the rest of the chapter. While I think that saying Chapter 4 is worse than 3 is completely insane, I do agree that Chapter 4 does handle it strangely as well. Being so heavy-handed in at the start, then basically acting like it didn't happen for the rest outside of some specific niche dialogue choices. I still think Chapter 3 handles it worse though, given it's supposed to be the game's official introduction to it despite not actually changing if you are doing it. Channeling your inner Fennekin Fox 326. Did you forget about the criminal dogs who escaped in Chapter 2? And Undyne is probably looking for them? This is an optional interaction. It wasn't a permanent change for Spamton. In the second chapter, if your inventory is full, then Spamton will throw out a few lines with square brackets, so Toby never had the intention that Spamton would stop talking like that forever. You know, I've never seen this interaction before or even heard of it, but after doing some research, yes, this does exist. I still don't like Spamton being able to casually hop back out of our inventory like nothing happened, or still talking to us in general past this point, as I think it removes some of the weight of the aftermath of Chris freaking out after his boss fight, but I will concede that it wasn't Chapter 3 that made this decision. I think now would be a good time to do a rapid fire round of a bunch of random comments I got, because there are a lot of them to go through. Also, I'm gonna have my friends reading these out and give them no voice direction because I think that's funny. Also, I didn't tell them what ones to voice or anything, so don't take it personally if one of them reads out something you said in a silly voice, okay?
Media literacy levels are at a 0 with this one.
TMW YouTuber complains about something I never had an issue with.
This video is like ice cream with dog poop in it. I don't need to read the rest of the comment, I already peeked there.
Yeah, I feel like Chapter 3 had a lot of prints of potential, so yeah, fuck Chapter 3.
Oh, and he mentioned...
This strikes me as a video from somebody who was just not able to immerse themselves in the game enough to see past the surface level. Chapter 3 is the most atmospheric by far. Toby Fox has an obvious, genuine love for the childlike, humorous moments that cover most...
The outside is adorable. I don't know what else to say.
This better be a joke. I haven't even played Undertale, and I even know that this is disrespectful to her character.
Chris, too close? It literally shows you a cutscene where he goes into your inventory.
At the end of chapter 2, if you check your inventory before entering the chapter, you can see you still have Lancer and Rules card on you. Sure enough, this is also true. However, I do want to make a note that while this does technically explain them showing up, the problem is that we see them initially enter our inventory, see them exit our inventory, but never see them get back in our inventory. So yes, they are there, the game just had them magically teleport back into there, which feels weird. You can just go home without going to Castle Town. Oh my god, you can? Why? That doesn't even make sense. What the hell, Tony? According to the deep research that is checking a single Reddit thread, you can just leave without dropping them off as Susie only tries to stop you once. Has this been patched? I don't know, I'm not redoing the boss to find out. 4 buttons for the Lightness Live minigame on Switch sounds like a nightmare to me. It was already hard enough with 2 for me, but maybe I just suck at video games, who knows. This was a point a couple other people brought up, and I do understand it to a degree, but I still think that just 2 buttons is limiting. Perhaps 3 buttons would have been a better compromise? But yes, I do think that'd be a bit too complex to jump on players who somehow haven't played the rhythm game before. Chapter 4 kind of mogged Chapter 3 if you don't count that part at the end with the cool boss fight. Yes, absolutely. These chapters being the only 2 to release alongside one another so far really does put into perspective how much better Chapter 4 is than Chapter 3. Can you imagine if Chapter 3 released on its own and there was another year-long wait until Chapter 4? Toby Fox's name would be dragged through the mud for months on end and the fandom would be in full panic mode concerning the rest of the game's quality going forward. It's clear that you don't like Tenor and I get that, but what Susie says here isn't just for him. Look at the scene again. It starts with Ralsei walking up to a defeated Tenor and mirroring what he said at the start of the chapter. Darkness aren't real people, he served his purpose and he should get out of their way now that he's outlived his usefulness. This scene is Susie's rejection of Ralsei's philosophy, and a response to what he said at the start of the chapter that she's been trying to formulate all chapter. I understand where people have come from on my issues with the scene. The idea that this is a backhanded speech to Ralsei as well does make more sense and improve it a bit still, but I still don't enjoy the scene personally. Thank you for pointing this out. I do like that this is meant to also be a message to Ralsei to mirror the start of the chapter. That's a cool detail, I didn't realise that. I can feel the Tesnakera influence, lol. I don't know who that is. But hey, I'm getting compared to other bigger YouTubers, look at me go. Speaking of, this is like the Shay Thrillers Pikmin 2 video. Plain dumb. See, look at that, my video bashing Deltarune Chapter 3 was so good, I'm being actively compared to a YouTuber with over 1 million subscribers, wowee! Actual nothing burger with extra nothing. You barely explain what you don't like and just spoon-fed us the entire game, and when you do explain it, it's like, okay, so insert pointless summarization, and I don't like it. Sure, you don't have to like it, but it feels less like objective criticism, more like a subjective opinion. Yeah, that's the point. It's my review. It's a review of my opinions. Sure. Yeah, okay. Wow, this mantle boss fight is the worst in the game. And I'm like, on what merit? Did I say that? Did I say the mantle fight is the worst boss fight in the game? The fight itself is decent. No, I didn't say that. I said the music was bad. I didn't like the music. I didn't say the boss fight was the worst. I had issues with how it prepared you for it, but, no, I don't know how to really respond to this one. Susie's pits definitely were reeking throughout Chapter 3. Thank you, Chief Master Guru. Well, we looked at a lot of fun comments, didn't we? If you still want to scream at me about how I'm wrong and your opinion is actually the only correct one in the comments, please do. I'll be trying to respond and engage with the comments on this video, though if your comment is just stupid, I probably won't bother. Let me leave you with one last comment I got in my video that summarizes the whole thing perfectly. It's very brave to express your opinion online. I was scratching my ass just as Tenor showed up.